Station Houston, are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, yes, I'm ready for the event.
European Space Agency, this is Mission Control in Houston. Please call the station for a voice check.
Sergey, 6 spacewalks, and Frank, 3. And by the end of it, you had set a new record for the longest spaceflight by a U.S. astronaut. And perhaps most remarkable, during your mission with 28 other individuals. Your competence, dedication, and hard work is also abundantly clear to me and my Expedition 70 crewmates.
Station, this is David Honus with ESA. How do you hear me?
Hello, David. I've got you loud and clear. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Thank you, Andreas. Welcome to this in-flight call. You are now connected live with 4 ESA European Space Education Resource Offices, known for short as ESROs. ESRO Finland, ESRO Denmark, ESRO Norway, and ESRO Sweden. Before we begin, I'd like to just give the word to you for some opening remarks.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be able to speak with students in so many different places today. As I said before, welcome to the International Space Station, humanity's outpost in space, where we are conducting science and technology demonstration for more than 20 years now. Actually, later this week, it will be the 25th anniversary of the launch of the very first module, the FGB, that was launched back in 1998. So the International Space Station is turning 25 years, which I think is absolutely incredible.
Well, that's amazing. Thanks for letting us know. Okay, so we're going to begin with questions from Finland. ESRO Finland, please proceed with your first 2 questions.
Hello, Andreas. I'm Ilona Lehtonen from Helsingin Suomalainen Yhteiskoulu. My question is, I've heard that technology used in space is helpful for life on Earth. Can you tell us more about it?
Well, you're absolutely right. A lot of the technology that we use up here is also very valuable on ground. To take a couple of examples, all of our power, all of our electricity on board the space station comes from solar arrays. So solar cells is an important technology up here that provides us all the energy that we need. And of course, solar cell technology is also very important in the future of green energy on Earth. We also, to as far an extent as possible, have to live sustainably up here. We are still very dependent on supplies from the Earth, but we try to reuse and recycle as much as possible. And so our life support system, which recycles the water up here, turns our urine into drinking water, turns our carbon dioxide back into oxygen. All of those technologies are also very applicable on Earth.
Finland, you can proceed with your second question.
Hello, I'm Suvi Huovelin, and I'm asking this question on behalf of Stadin Ammattiopisto. The question is, can you give examples of technologies on the International Space Station that help you recycle and reuse resources?
One of the critical resources that we recycle up here is water. water is fairly heavy and it's expensive to send up into space. And so we recycle and reuse water. At the moment, I think we're reusing something like 95% of the water on board the space station, which means that all of our urine and all of the sweat and all of the other moisture in the air is collected and recycled and turned back into drinking water. And so we typically say that the water that we drink today, well, it's the same water that we had yesterday. On top of that, we also use the water to create oxygen. We can electrolyze water, turn that into oxygen and hydrogen. The CO2 that we exhale when we breathe is also collected, and then that can be reacted to create more water and feed back into the system. The byproduct is methane, which we don't have a use for on board the space station, and so we would vent that overboard. But perhaps in the future, when we're on the moon or on Mars, we could use that methane as a rocket fuel, because methane together with oxygen makes a good rocket fuel combination.
Okay, thanks for your answers, Andreas. Now we're going to switch to Denmark for 2 questions. Denmark, please proceed with your first 2 questions.
Hello, my name is Lucas. Hello, my name is Liam. And our question is, in your opinion, what is the most incredible equipment a spacesuit has?
A spacesuit is an incredible piece of machinery, because it's what keeps you alive when you're out in the vacuum of space. And the conditions there are quite harsh. The temperature when you're in direct sunlight can go from plus 150 degrees to minus 150 degrees when you're in the shadow. And the spacesuit has to maintain a comfortable atmosphere inside the spacesuit, regardless of the conditions outside. And so all of those systems working together, the cooling system, the oxygen supply system, the carbon dioxide removal system, all those systems together really make an incredible machine that is the spacesuit and that keeps us alive.
Thank you. Hi, Andreas. In front of me right now, I have 200 children, and a lot of them have been programming on small microbit computers today. I'm standing with one in my hand right now. Can you tell us a bit more about the microbit computer that you have on board the station, and how important is programming for spaceflight in general?
That's right. I have a microbit. It's been renamed Astrobit simply because it's on board the International Space Station. But I look forward to working with this later on in my flight, when children will have a chance to write code that will be performed by this Astrobit on the International Space Station. You know, computing and programming are key technologies. Everything that drives a space station or controls a space station is software. And there are, hundreds, if not thousands, of programmers who've written code that runs on board the space station, not just in the systems, but all of the payloads. Many of the scientific experiments that we conduct up here are controlled from ground, and that also requires computer code. And so, computing and programming really are vital, not just when it comes to space exploration, but also on Earth. It really, computing has become an integral part of our lives.
Okay, now we switch to Ezra in Norway. And Ezra in Norway, please proceed with your first 2 questions.
Yes, we will. Thank you. Hi, Andreas. Thank you so much for doing this. This is really, really exciting. Our first question is from Helle. She is 8 years old and goes to Brevik Primary School. And the person who's going to ask this question is Felix. Felix, will do.
So the question is, are you guys doing any cool experiments up there?
We are doing so many cool experiments up here. Last week, I had a chance to study some human brain cells, or to understand how brain cells age in space. I also had a chance to work with a biofabrication facility, which is essentially a 3D printer for human cells and tissues, and we're trying to print human organs or simulants of human organs to see if that's a possibility in the future. I'm also working on really cool experiments that study Earth's climate and atmosphere, in particular taking pictures of giant lightning strikes that shoot upwards from the top of thunderclouds out towards space, called blue jets and red sprites. So many different types of cool experiments that we're doing on board the space station.
Thank you. And shall I just proceed? Yeah. So we have another question, and the one who's going to ask this question is Linnea.
Can you contact people on Earth while you are in space? How do you do it? Is there a space phone?
Good question. Luckily, yes, we can contact our family and our friends while we're up on board the space station. We have not quite 24/7 coverage, but almost, thanks to what's called the TDRS satellite system. So it's a network of satellites that orbit the Earth at a much higher altitude than the space station, and so we can send our radio signals to those satellites, and then they retransmit those signals back to ground stations on Earth. It's what's allowing us to talk right now, and it's also what allows me to send emails, but also to make video calls with my friends and my family. So we luckily have plenty of opportunity to keep in contact with our loved ones at home.
Thank you, Andreas. Okay, so now we're going to switch to Esro Sweden for 2 questions.
Hello, we are Einar and William from Nya Läroverket in Luleå, and this is our question.
How often does objects come close to colliding with the ISS?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. Could you repeat, please?
I'll repeat the question. Okay, so the question was, how often do objects in space come close to colliding with the ISS?
Well, that's a good question. And honestly, we probably don't know, because we cannot see every piece of space debris or micrometeorite that's out there. And we actually had a good example earlier on this mission. I was supposed to go out on a spacewalk, but a couple of days before the spacewalk, one of the external radiators suddenly started leaking fluid or coolant into space. And what likely happened is that it was hit by a very small micrometeorite, maybe on the size of just 1 millimeter. But that was enough to create a hole in the radiator and cause coolant to leak into space. And that unfortunately delayed the spacewalk that I was going on. For bigger pieces of space debris, we are able to track them. And if we think that the risk of a collision is sufficiently high, then we have to move the space station. And we can do that by firing the engines at the end of the space station and usually lifting the space station into a higher orbit. So increasing the height by a few kilometers is usually enough to avoid any collision.
We are Signe and Doris from Nya Läroverket in Luleå, and this is our question. What other challenges will there be for a space station around the moon instead of the Earth?
Well, I am so excited that we are returning to the moon. I can't believe that after, more than 40 years, we'll finally see humans returning to the moon in the next couple of years. And there are going to be many challenges. First and foremost, astronauts going to the moon, living on board a space station in orbit about the moon will be further away from the Earth. It'll take anywhere from 3 to 5 days to fly to the moon, which also means that it'll take longer to send them resupplies or for them to return home in the case of an emergency. On top of that, anyone traveling to the moon will be so far away from the Earth that they will no longer be protected by the atmosphere of the Earth or the magnetic field of the Earth. Here on board the space station, even though we're in space, we're still partly protected by the magnetic field of the Earth, which still shields us a little bit from cosmic radiation and solar particles. But when you're in orbit about the moon, astronauts are going to have to rely on more protection from the spacecraft and from the space station because there's no magnetic field, no atmosphere to protect them from radiation in space.
Thank you, Andreas. Okay, so now we're going to move to Esro, Finland for one question.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Christian Aleng. I'm asking this question on behalf of Eskolanmäen koulu. The question is, what do you have to be really good at to work in space?
Well, first of all, you have to be good at science and technology because everything we do up here is somehow related to science, technology, and engineering. So a basic understanding of that is necessary. But on top of that, what you have to be good at is teamwork because everything that we do involves teamwork up here. We are 7 astronauts on board the space station working together, living together for 6 months at a time. And on top of that, everything that we do is in collaboration with Mission Control Center Houston and Mission Control Center Moscow. There's also a Mission Control Center outside of Munich, Germany, one in Japan, and a few others distributed around the world. And all of our work is basically teamwork, not just with the astronauts up here, but with mission control centers all around the world. So teamwork, communication skills, interpersonal skills are very, very important to a successful mission.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andreas. Okay, so I've just been informed we have time for one more question. Now we're going to switch to Esro, Denmark for the last question.
Hi, my name is Ville, and my question is, what is it like to sleep in space? Do you use any gadgets or tools to help you sleep better?
Sleeping in space is actually not bad. I mean, you can't lie down on a bed, but we have a sleeping bag that we can crawl into, and it's fairly comfortable. I would say I sleep about the same as I do on ground. Now, the big problem up here is that we don't have a natural day-night cycle. So our bodies kind of lose the rhythm of day and night. And to help me keep that natural cycle, I'm testing some technology from a Danish company called Sega Space Architects. And they've developed a light panel that changes in color to mimic the colors of natural sunlight on the Earth, which shifts from blue to more reddish in the evenings, and that helps to control what's called our circadian rhythm, and that's really what governs our day-night cycles on the Earth. And so I'm trying to test that to see if that'll help improve my alertness and my sleep cycles here in space.
Okay, thank you, Andreas, and that concludes the Q&A session, and I'd just like to give the floor to you for some closing remarks.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's participated and for asking such excellent questions. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. I hope that you've been inspired, and I hope that you will follow along with this mission. There are plenty of opportunities, not just on ESA's website, esa.int, but also on my social media profiles, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. There are plenty of opportunities to follow along what we're doing up here, and I will do my best to share my experiences on this incredible mission on board the International Space Station.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all the participants from ESA. For the station, will now resume operational space to ground.